The moment a customer clicks buy now on your online store, their conscious mind has absolutely nothing to do with the decision. It is already over.
Right. It's done.
Yeah, the conscious mind is literally just showing up after the fact to sign the receipt. Welcome to the seed, by the way.
And, while that might be a profoundly uncomfortable thought for anyone who believes they are in total control of their shopping habits, it is entirely backed up by the neurological data we're diving into today.
Totally.
A purchase is not a rational evaluation.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it is a biological event.
Right. And if you are listening to this right now, you are probably building something. You're an ambitious online merchant. Maybe you are running a Shopify store, or you're directing e-commerce strategy for a growing brand. And every single day, you are trying to figure out how to grow that business intelligently in a landscape that, frankly, feels totally chaotic.
Oh, it is chaotic.
You're agonizing over where to put your marketing budget, who to partner with, and, most importantly, why some campaigns absolutely explode with sales, while others, despite looking perfect on a spreadsheet, just completely flatline.
Yeah, and that unpredictable gap between what should work and what actually works is exactly where we are going to live today. Because influencer marketing is not just some trendy tactic. It's not a temporary buzzword.
Right.
When it is executed correctly, it maps flawlessly onto the human brain's deepest neurological architecture.
Exactly. So here is the roadmap for this deep dive. We are going to explore the biology of desire. And along the way, we're going to rigorously debunk some very pervasive, very profitable pop science myths.
Oh, there's so many.
Right. Myths about dopamine and mirror neurons that you have probably seen in, a dozen marketing slide decks.
It's at least a dozen.
We are going to unpack the exact biological mechanism that explains why an influencer with maybe 15,000 followers will consistently outsell a massive celebrity with 15 million followers.
Which is always wild to think about.
It really is. Then we'll examine the brain's subconscious spam filter of authenticity. We'll decode the primal evolutionary fear that drives FOMO, and finally reveal how social platforms actually act as neurological amplifiers for all of this.
It requires a massive shift in perspective. For anyone operating an online store, understanding these underlying biological mechanisms really is the difference between blindly throwing your marketing budget at influencers and just hoping for a spike in traffic versus engineering a predictable, durable system for conversions.
And because your time is valuable, we are leading with the highest value, most actionable insights immediately.
Right into it.
Yeah, we are starting with how you choose the exact right influencers to drive immediate sales for your store before we work our way into the deeper structural mechanics of the social platforms themselves. So to set the stage, let's look at an observation from the advertising legend David Ogilvy.
A classic.
He famously noted that consumers don't think what they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say.
Yeah. And what is genuinely staggering about that observation is that Ogilvy wrote it decades before functional magnetic resonance imaging fMRI machines even existed.
Right. He had no brain scans to look at.
Exactly. He built that insight entirely on intuition, sharp observation, and relentless trial and error. But now, the brain scans have actually proven him right.
Wow.
By the time a consumer physically taps that Buy Now button on your checkout page, the decision was already assembled, vetted, and approved in neural circuits that the consumer has absolutely no conscious access to.
Okay, let's pause and really break that down. Because if the conscious mind is just showing up at the end of the transaction to sign the paperwork, what is doing the actual buying? What is the machinery running under the hood?
Well, the buying is being driven by survival and learning systems that evolved millions of years before the concept of e-commerce or even commerce itself existed.
Right.
To really understand this, we need to look back at Albert Bandura's social learning theory from the 1960s. Bandura established a foundational truth about human development, which is that humans learn primarily by observing others. We don't have to touch a hot stove to know it burns if we watch someone else do it, right?
Sure.
But, and this is the critical part for marketing, we do not just imitate anyone randomly. We are ruthlessly selective.
How so?
The observed behavior is only likely to be imitated when the observer deeply identifies with the model and when that model is visibly rewarded for the behavior.
So let's translate that to a Tuesday morning scrolling session for a potential customer.
Okay, yeah.
If I am watching an influencer and I strongly identify with them, maybe they are a tired parent like me, or they live in a small apartment like me and they seem genuinely thrilled using a specific space-saving coffee machine.
Right.
That thrill is the reward.
Right.
I don't sit there and consciously calculate, oh, I should purchase this appliance to replicate their joy. My brain just silently updates its internal model of what specific behaviors lead to a positive outcome.
Precisely. That silent update is the theoretical foundation of all influencer marketing, even if the industry doesn't explicitly frame it that
I
way.
usually just call it conversions.
Right, exactly. But when an influencer resembles your target audience, which fulfills Bandura's identification requirement and visibly benefits from your product, it creates the absolute optimal conditions for behavioral imitation.
Wow.
The social learning system updates its internal map of the world, and subsequent choices like, clicking your product link and checking out are just the physical manifestations of that updated map.
Now, I want to get into the actual biology of why that identification is so powerful, because it ties directly into a concept called homophily, right?
Yes, homophily.
This is the neurologically grounded tendency for humans to associate with and implicitly trust people who are similar to us.
Homophily is fascinating because it is at its core a survival mechanism. When we perceive someone as similar to us, it physically lowers the threat assessment activity in the amygdala.
Okay, wait, let's talk about the amygdala for a second.
Sure. Now, people often shorthand the amygdala as just the brain's fear center, but it is much more accurate to think of it as a relevance and vigilance detector.
Like an alarm system.
Kind of. It is constantly scanning the environment asking, is this safe? Is this a threat?
And the default posture toward any kind of advertising or sales pitch is massive skepticism, right?
Oh, completely.
Skepticism is the brain's defense mechanism against being exploited, but maintaining that skepticism requires a heavy cognitive load. It takes a lot of energy to constantly evaluate if someone is trying to trick you.
Exactly. And the brain is fundamentally an energy-saving organ. It's lazy, in a way.
Yeah.
It has a standing preference for the familiar, because familiarity strongly correlates with safety.
Right, that makes sense.
And similarity is one of the most reliable signals of familiarity we have. So when an influencer shares your target audience's exact demographics, their aesthetic, their specific vocabulary, their
Yeah.
everyday financial constraints.
Like complaining about the same grocery prices.
Yes, exactly. Their niche aspirations, all of it. The audience's brain processes their content through a low-resistance channel. The amygdala essentially stands down.
The cognitive effort of skepticism just vanishes. The influencer's content doesn't read as a commercial. It reads as advice from someone who gets it.
Yes, and this completely shatters the traditional legacy logic of celebrity endorsements.
I really want to dig into that because I know merchants who still obsess over the math of massive audiences.
They all do.
You look at a global pop star or a massive celebrity with 15 million followers and you think, the reach is unbelievable. The top of funnel volume will be so huge that even if the conversion rate is tiny, we'll sell out.
Right, it's a sheer numbers game to them.
But the data explicitly states that micro-influencers say a creator with 15,000 highly engaged followers in a very specific niche consistently absolutely crush macro-influencers on actual conversion metrics.
They crush them because the identification component is infinitely stronger. A micro-influencer reads to the brain as a peer. A celebrity with 15 million followers reads as an aspiration.
And those are different biological pathways.
Entirely different.
Yeah.
Aspiration activates a completely different, far less direct neurological pathway. Aspiration can motivate us to dream, to change our long-term goals, but it does not produce that immediate, visceral, identification-driven imitation that peer observation does.
Wow.
The brain's social learning system responds vastly more readily to the biological signal of someone exactly like me does this than it does to someone I admire from afar does this.
I always visualize it like this. A macro influencer, a massive celebrity endorsement is like a brilliantly lit, flashy billboard on the side of the highway.
Okay.
You see it as you drive by at 70 miles an hour. It's huge. It's gorgeous. Maybe it features a supermodel holding a luxury leather bag.
Right.
You acknowledge its existence. It might even elevate the brand's prestige in your mind. But you do not immediately slam on the brakes, pull the car over to the shoulder, and try to buy the bag right then and there. The friction is just too high.
Right. The distance between the stimulus and the action is massive.
But a micro-influencer is entirely different. A micro-influencer is like sitting on your couch in your sweatpants and getting a text message from a good friend saying, hey, I know you were complaining about your skin feeling dry. You have to try this new moisturizer I just found.
Which is so much more direct.
Exactly. The highway billboard might be seen by 1 million people, but the response rate to that one text message from a trusted peer is incredibly high.
That is a phenomenal analogy because it highlights the intimacy of the medium. The viewer's brain is constantly calculating, this person knows what I know, they share my exact budget constraints, they share my cultural reference points.
Right.
Therefore, their choices are highly informative about what I should do.
But I want to push back on this on behalf of our listeners because I can hear the media buyers yelling at their speakers right now.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Isn't marketing, at the end of the day, a ruthless numbers game?
Yeah.
If I'm a Shopify merchant, how can a smaller reach genuinely compete with millions of eyeballs if the math is strictly about funnel volume?
Yeah, the old funnel logic.
Right, like even if the conversion percentage is much lower for the celebrity, surely 1% of 15 million eyeballs is better than 10% of 15,000 eyeballs.
I hear that pushback all the time, but it assumes that trust scales linearly with volume, and it absolutely does not. This raises a crucial point about how trust compounds versus how trust degrades.
Okay, unpack that.
Yes, raw volume matters if your only goal is top-of-mind brand awareness. If you just need people to recognize your logo in a grocery store aisle, buy the billboard.
Sure.
But for direct conversions, the act of actually convincing someone to pull out their credit card and enter their shipping information on their phone, the low-resistance trust channel, dramatically shifts the equation. You are not paying for eyeballs. You are paying for the transfer of trust.
And trust isn't a single event, right? It's a compounding asset.
Exactly. And repeated exposure to a peer endorsement amplifies this effect through a psychological mechanism documented by Robert Zajonc called the mere exposure effect.
Break down the mere exposure effect for us. How does that actually work mechanically?
The mere exposure effect is the neurological phenomenon where repeated exposure to a stimulus, a person, an image, a sound, increases our positive feelings toward it, simply because it becomes familiar.
Even if we aren't paying close attention?
Yes. It happens even if you don't consciously realize you are being exposed to it. So, seeing the same micro-influencer endorse a product category across multiple posts over 3 months feels to the brain like you are growing familiar with a highly trustworthy source.
Mm-hmm.
The brain's internal model of this person crystallizes them as reliably positive. At that point, their specific endorsement of your specific product becomes an overwhelmingly powerful cue.
So for the merchant listening, deploying 5 micro-influencers who share the exact demographics, struggles, and constraints of your target customer and having them post consistently is going to yield a radically higher return on investment than blowing your entire quarterly marketing budget on one massive celebrity post.
Without question.
You're building a reliable, compounding model of peer endorsement.
You are building a trust architecture. Match the influencer to your audience on similarity, not on scale. That peer identification is doing all the heavy lifting for your conversions.
Okay, so that establishes who you should hire and why similarity matters. But let's look at the mechanics of how the actual product endorsement takes hold in the brain of the viewer.
Right, the actual moment of viewing.
How does an influencer looking into a camera lens physically compel a stranger to want an object? Because this brings us to some wild, often misunderstood science from the 1990s.
Yes, the famous Parma macaque monkey studies.
Oh, this is fascinating.
We have to talk about this because it is crucial for debunking a massive pop science myth that has frankly infected the marketing industry.
Totally.
So in the early 1990s, a team of researchers led by a neurophysiologist named Giacomo Rizzolatti was studying the tremotor cortex of macaque monkeys. They had electrodes hooked up to individual neurons to monitor motor activity.
They were tracking the physical mechanics of movement, basically.
Exactly. And they noticed something completely serendipitous and unexpected. There were specific neurons that fired wildly when a monkey reached out his hand to grab a peanut.
Okay.
But those exact same neurons also fired when the monkey sat perfectly still and simply watched a human researcher reach for a peanut.
So the monkey's brain fired the exact same motor response just by observing the action.
Yes.
And they coined the term mirror neurons.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Now, what happened next is one of the most classic cases of scientific data getting wildly sensationalized by the media and the business world.
I mean, marketers love a buzzword.
They really do. The popular science narrative exploded. Magazines and marketing gurus began claiming that mirror neurons explain human empathy, language acquisition, imitation, and basically the entirety of human social life.
It was everywhere.
Marketers latched onto this like a holy grail, claiming that if you just show a video of someone drinking your beverage or wearing your shoes, the viewer's mirror neurons will automatically fire, forcing them into a state of empathy and compelling them to buy it.
Right. It's the dopamine equals reward, and mirror neurons equal forced empathy, shorthand that you hear at every single marketing conference.
But the rigorous data tells a very different story. taking a localized motor response in a macaque monkey's cortex and leapfrogging that into a unified theory of complex human social cognition is massively overstated.
So it's mostly hype.
A lot of it is, yeah. Many prominent cognitive neuroscientists, researchers like Christian Kiesers, Marco A. Caboni, and especially Gregory Hickok, have fiercely debated this.
Hickok has been pretty vocal about it, right?
Very vocal. He has written extensively arguing that the evidence for human mirror neurons doing all this emotional heavy lifting is incredibly weak.
So if the mirror neuron empathy hack is largely a myth, what is actually happening? What does the rigorous research actually support when a viewer watches an influencer unbox a product?
What is genuinely supported by human fMRI scans is a concept called motor resonance. Humans do show activation in motor and premotor areas when observing actions performed by others.
Okay, so there is some mirroring happening.
Yes, the brain does not treat an observed action as entirely disconnected from a performed action. If you watch an influencer meticulously apply a facial serum, some of the same motor representations activate in your brain as if you were doing it.
That makes sense.
But the mechanism that actually drives the desire to purchase isn't some magical dedicated mirror neuron empathy circuit.
Right.
The desire is driven by a combination of the social learning we already discussed and, crucially, a phenomenon called emotional contagion.
Let's spend some time on emotional contagion, because if a brand owner truly understands this, it acts like a superpower.
It really does.
Emotional contagion is the tendency to unconsciously mimic and converge emotionally with the people around you. And the wild part is, you do not need to be in the same physical room to catch someone's emotional state. The contagion scales perfectly through digital media.
What is most fascinating about emotional contagion is how deeply physiological it is. It is not just a vague feeling. It is a measurable biological event. Watching a video of an influencer expressing genuine, unbridled enthusiasm produces immediate physiological changes in the viewer. We are talking about the viewer's heart rate shifting, their skin conductance changing as they microscopically sweat, and their own facial muscles subtly activating to mirror the emotion they are observing.
To make this visceral for the listener, it's like the lemon analogy.
Oh, that's a great one.
Imagine watching a high-definition video of someone taking a massive, forceful bite out of a raw, bright yellow, incredibly sour lemon. You watch the juice hit their tongue, you watch their face contort.
I'm wincing just thinking about it.
Exactly. You are sitting on your couch miles away. You know for an absolute objective fact that you are not eating a lemon, but your mouth puckers.
Yeah.
Your salivary glands immediately kick into overdrive. Your eyes might even water slightly. Your physiology is reacting involuntarily to an observed experience.
That is a perfect physical demonstration of what happens emotionally during a successful influencer campaign. When an influencer authentically enjoys your product, when their eyes light up and their vocal pacing quickens, the viewer's emotional baseline literally shifts toward that state of enjoyment.
Well, and why does that matter for the checkout cart, like practically speaking for a Shopify merchant?
Because of how the brain processes friction.
Friction, okay.
Rational objections to a purchase, like looking at the price tag and thinking it's too expensive, or noticing the shipping takes 7 days instead of 2, those logical barriers are processed completely differently by the brain when the underlying emotional context is highly positive.
So it lowers the barriers.
Exactly. Positive affect makes us more open to risk and more forgiving of friction.
Oh, wow. So if I am selling a product online, I need to completely reframe how I view influencer payments. I'm not actually paying an influencer for access to their audience's eyeballs.
No, you're not.
I am literally paying for the transfer of the influencer's physiological enthusiasm into the nervous systems of the viewers.
That is exactly what you are paying for.
Because if the influencer does not genuinely care about my product, the viewer's physiology will not shift. And all those rational barriers, the price, the shipping time, the alternative options will remain fully fortified in the buyer's mind.
That is exactly the dynamic. You are paying for emotional contagion. And this reveals a massive systemic error in how most brands operate.
Yes, because let's talk about the standard operating procedure for most brands.
It's usually terrible.
It is. As a merchant, I hire an influencer, and then my legal and marketing teams send them a strict, rigidly bullet-pointed script. We demand they hit 5 specific corporate talking points, read our brand slogan verbatim, and list all the technical specs.
Right, which is just...
Am I essentially sabotaging the exact physiological reaction I am paying them to generate?
You are entirely short-circuiting the mechanism. Authentic enthusiasm produces exponentially stronger emotional contagion than performed enthusiasm.
Because humans can tell when it's fake.
Exactly. The micro signals that viewers read to determine authenticity, vocal tone, micro expressions, conversational pacing, eye movement are incredibly difficult to fake. And they are processed pre-consciously by the viewer's brain.
Hmm.
When an influencer is trying to recall your bullet points, their vocal tension physically tightens, their pacing becomes rehearsed and rigid, their eyes flick slightly as they try to remember the script.
And the audience's brain picks up on that immediately. Which brings us to one of the most critical concepts in this entire deep dive. The brain's biological spam filter.
A very necessary defense mechanism.
Humans are exceptionally, brutally efficient at detecting a performance. We process microexpressions that last less than a fifth of a second. We detect subtle incongruences between what someone is saying with their mouth and what their body language is doing.
And we do it without thinking.
Mm.
Most people watching a scripted video cannot logically articulate what triggered their distrust.
They just feel it.
Right. They just feel a sudden instinctual sense that something is off, or conversely, that a different video feels raw and real.
It functions exactly like an incredibly sophisticated biological spam filter. The absolute second the brain detects the scent of a forced corporate script, it routes the video straight to the brain's junk folder.
Perfect analogy.
So, from a neurological perspective, what is mechanically happening in the brain when it detects a genuine performance versus a fake, scripted one?
We're looking at two distinct processing pathways in the brain. When content reads as fluid and genuine, the amygdala's threat assessment activity stays very low.
Okay, the alarm stays off.
Right. Remember, the amygdala is constantly scanning for deception, because deception from a peer in a tribal setting could be dangerous. If the amygdala stays calm, the prefrontal cortex, which manages what neuroscientists call the skepticism load, also stays relaxed.
So the audience is just taking it in.
The audience remains open. They process the influencer's content through that low-resistance channel, just like advice from a trusted friend.
But the moment the content reads as performed or heavily incentivized by a script?
The threat assessment spikes. The amygdala alerts the system, and the skepticism channel in the prefrontal cortex immediately engages.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly, the exact same information about your product is being subjected to intense, critical evaluation. The viewer's brain asks, why are they saying this? What is their hidden motive? This is why brand influencer fit is a non-negotiable mechanical necessity, not just a soft aesthetic preference.
Because if the fit is wrong, it triggers the alarm. Like if a rugged, off-grid outdoorsman influencer suddenly starts aggressively pitching a brightly colored, cheap plastic kitchen gadget in the middle of a wilderness video.
Right, the brain just goes, wait a minute.
The audience's brain goes on high alert. The endorsement totally degrades, no one buys the gadget, and the influencer's own credibility takes collateral damage.
Precisely. But when the brand fit is strong and the influencer's relationship with the product is genuinely authentic, the trust transfer from the influencer to the product is largely automatic.
It just flows.
The audience seamlessly updates their internal model of what this trusted person believes is worth having. Your e-commerce product literally inherits the trust relationship that the creator has spent years painstakingly building with their audience.
Okay, let's unpack a very specific scenario that I know terrifies a lot of online store owners. I want to talk about the paradox of overpositivity.
Oh, this is a big one.
A lot of brand owners, when they finally secure a big influencer, will draft a contract demanding that the creators say the product is 100% flawless, the greatest thing ever made, and they stipulate that absolutely zero negative feedback is allowed in the video.
Which is, biologically speaking, the absolute worst thing they could do. The research on this is definitive. Products that have a mix of positive and mildly critical reviews are trusted vastly more than products with uniformly positive reviews.
Why? That feels so counterintuitive to a marketer. I mean, you'd think 5.0 stars is always better than 4.7 stars.
It comes down to the brain's prediction error system, which functions as an incredibly sensitive credibility detector. Think of the brain as a massive, continuous prediction engine. It is constantly guessing what is going to happen next based on past experience.
Okay.
Because human beings know that nothing in the physical world is 100% perfect for 100% of people, the brain predicts that any honest review will contain some nuance. When a viewer hears uniform, unblemished perfection, it creates a massive negative prediction error. It feels unnatural.
Because reality isn't flawless. When the brain hears this is perfect, the biological spam filter screams, lie. The skepticism channel immediately powers up.
Exactly. Calibrated endorsement, which explicitly includes honest reservations, keeps the trust signal high.
Can you give an example?
Sure, if an influencer says, look, the packaging was genuinely frustrating to open, and it's definitely on the pricier side, but the serum itself completely cleared my skin in 2 weeks, that minor critique actually validates the trust channel.
Because it sounds like a real human being.
It satisfies the brain's prediction error system. The brain says, unexpected honesty. This person is telling the truth.
That is such a vital takeaway for the merchants listening. Allowing the influencer to share minor, honest critiques does not hurt your sales. It actively bypasses the skepticism channel and makes the authenticity signal legible to the buyer.
Exactly.
And does this also apply to FTC sponsorships? Because brands are terrified of the hashtag ad tag.
It absolutely applies to sponsorships. Counterintuitively, the neurological research shows that transparently disclosing a sponsorship does not inherently reduce the effectiveness of the campaign.
Marketers will fight you on that. They
Yeah.
think the moment the viewer sees hashtag ad, the conversion rate plummets.
It only plummets if the underlying enthusiasm is fake. The brain's authenticity detector is not asking a legal or financial question like, was this creator financially compensated?
Right. The brain doesn't care about the FTC.
No, it is asking a deeper biological question. Does this person actually believe the words they are saying? A clear sponsorship disclosure, given alongside genuinely enthusiastic, highly specific, personally referenced content, reads entirely differently to the brain than a disclosure slapped onto generic, flat promotional copy.
So in a marketing ecosystem where FTC disclosures are totally normalized, it actually helps the good merchants. It makes genuine enthusiasm stand out even more clearly because it isn't hidden in deception.
Exactly.
If your product is actually excellent and the influencer genuinely loves using it, the sponsorship tag just makes the honest signal clearer.
Yes. Sponsorship that aligns with a genuine belief produces authentic signals. Sponsorship that requires saying things the influencer doesn't believe produces inauthentic ones. The preconscious detection system will pick up the difference every single time.
So just trust the creator.
The lesson for the merchant is this. Treat authenticity as a hard technical requirement, not a soft brand value. Give them the product, let them develop a real experience with it, and give them the freedom to speak honestly.
All right, we've talked deeply about dopamine and approach behaviors. We've talked about trust and authenticity. Now we have to talk about the dark side of the coin.
The avoidance behaviors.
Right. Because while dopamine governs approach behavior moving towards something we desire, fear governs avoidance. And we need to explore the primal fear architecture behind one of the most effective and overused e-commerce tactics, FOMO, fear of missing out.
This is a fascinating area because it connects our modern hyperdigital habits directly to our brutal evolutionary past.
It's not just a modern buzzword, is it?
No, FOMO is not just a modern buzzword. It is a profound social fear rooted in the exact same neurological system that governs exclusion anxiety. Humans evolved in small tribal groups, usually around 150 people.
Dunbar's number, right.
Exactly. In that ancient context, being excluded from the group or missing out on a tribal hunting party didn't just mean you were unpopular. It meant you were cut off from resources, protection, and mates. It meant you might literally starve or die. It was an acute survival threat.
So when we feel FOMO today, when we see an influencer at a party we weren't invited to, or showing off a product we don't have, we aren't just feeling a mild sense of consumer disappointment. Biologically, we are experiencing a low-grade survival threat.
Yes, that is exactly what the neuroimaging suggests. The neural architecture that responds to social exclusion is the same architecture that modern social media engagement patterns activate.
That is wild to think about.
The amygdala does not distinguish between being left out of a life-saving hunting party 10,000 years ago and being left out of an exclusive streetwear product drop or an experience everyone on your feed is hyping today.
The emotional response is the same. Urgency, anxiety, and a powerful biological motivation to close that gap and rejoin the tribe.
Precisely. When an influencer posts about an exclusive event, early VIT access, or a highly limited product that the viewer is not experiencing, it triggers this ancient system. The content is signaling a social reality where others are having a better, more secure experience than you are. This triggers an automatic social comparison alarm. The amygdala fires. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, is released into the bloodstream.
And that's what drives the purchase.
Yes. And the motivation to act to buy, to participate, spikes aggressively just to relieve the physiological stress of exclusion.
And social media platforms are systematically designed to trigger this. The algorithm curates a feed showing you a highly distorted selection of peak
A
experiences.
highlight reel.
Right. You are only seeing the top 10% of life, the incredible vacations, the flawless product reveals, the massive achievements. The algorithm selects for engagement, and peak experiences generate engagement. So the feed systematically misrepresents the actual distribution of human experience.
Totally.
You are sitting on your couch, comparing your entirely normal, boring Tuesday to an endless scrolling highlight reel of everyone else's top 10%.
Which leaves the viewer in a constant state of mild underlying social threat. This is the biological foundation for why product drops, limited editions, and 24-hour flash sales are so incredibly effective for online stores. They offer an immediate purchasable solution to that cortisol-driven anxiety.
But, and this is a massive warning for the merchants listening who are thinking about leaning into FOMO, we have to talk about compulsion marketing.
Yes, the dark side of FOMO.
How does a merchant walk the line between effectively triggering that FOMO response to drive a massive Black Friday weekend sale and accidentally training their audience that the brand is manipulative and toxic?
This brings us right back to how the brain updates its internal models. Applying FOMO effectively and responsibly means applying it exclusively to genuine scarcity.
Genuine scarcity.
Right. If a product actually has limited availability, maybe you only sourced enough material for 1,000 units and it actually delivers real value, it completely justifies the urgency frame.
Okay.
But if a merchant uses those fake countdown timers on their Shopify store that just miraculously reset when they hit 0,
Oh, I hate those.
we all do. Or they manufacture artificial scarcity, we're sold out, just means we have 10,000 more in the warehouse, but we want you to panic. The audience's brain eventually registers the mismatch.
It's the psychological equivalent of the boy who cried wolf. I want to draw this out because it's so important. Think about the village. The first time the boy cries wolf, or the brand says, urgent, only 5 left. The cortisol spikes, the town runs to help, the customer scrambles for their credit card.
And it works beautifully.
But by the third fake alarm, the biological response is muted. The brain updates its model. It says, this stimulus does not correlate with an actual threat. The panic is replaced by intense annoyance and deep skepticism.
And the commercial consequences of crying wolf are severe. When consumers are conditioned through compulsion marketing without genuine product fit or through blatantly fake scarcity, they eventually register the manipulation.
And they leave.
The trust degrades permanently. Your return rate climbs because they bought under false duress and regret it. Your review quality drops. And the influencer who promoted the fake scarcity takes a massive hit to their own credibility.
Nobody wins.
But a brand that reserves the scarcity frame for genuine constraints builds a durable, long-term FOMO response. It works precisely because the audience has learned the signal is completely reliable.
So if you are doing a limited run of 500 hand-poured ceramic mugs, say there are only 500, when they are gone, they're gone. Do not quietly restock them the next day, because the next time you do a drop, the audience knows the scarcity is real and the amygdala response is entirely justified.
Exactly. Use scarcity mechanics on genuine constraints, never manufactured ones. The short-term conversion lift you get from artificial scarcity comes with a brutal, fatal, medium-term credibility cost. You shift your audience permanently into the skepticism channel, and once they are there, it is almost impossible to get them back out.
Okay, we are getting into the final stretch here, and we need to pull back the curtain on the environment where all of this biology is playing out.
The platforms.
Because influencer content doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It lives inside heavily engineered environments, the apps themselves. We need to talk about the platform casino.
This is a crucial concept. Understanding platform mechanics is neurological design, clarifies why a video on Instagram or TikTok performs so radically differently from that exact same video embedded on a static, plain white web page.
Right.
These platforms are engineered environments designed with one singular goal: to maximize time on platform, which means they are meticulously engineered to maximize neurological engagement.
And the core design principle for every major social feed, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or X, is something behavioral psychologists call a variable ratio reinforcement schedule.
Yes.
This is the exact same psychology behind a slot machine in a Las Vegas casino, right?
Yes. It traces straight back to B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning boxes. It is the unpredictability of what the next scroll will reveal that generates the dopamine signal. The platforms have tested exhaustively, using billions of data points, to find the absolute optimal mix of familiar content and novel content.
So they are constantly tuning it.
Constantly. If a feed has too much novelty, the brain experiences confusion and fatigue, and the user closes the app. If it has too much familiarity, the brain accurately predicts what's coming. You get a flat dopamine response, and the user gets bored and closes the app.
So the algorithms are precision-tuned to live in that exact middle ground.
Yes, they tune the feed to the exact range where prediction error signals remain intensely high. You scroll, and you don't know if you will see a boring ad, a politically enraging news clip, or a hilarious, hyper-targeted video from your favorite creator.
The suspense is what gets you.
That uncertainty is the hook. The dopamine isn't in the reward itself. The dopamine spikes in the anticipation of the unknown reward.
And notifications play massively into this ecosystem too. They aren't just helpful utility reminders, they are unpredictable social signals. The research notes that the human brain has a deeply embedded bias towards social information. A notification that someone liked your post or mentioned you creates a massive dopamine spike because it validates your social standing in the tribe.
And notice how the platforms deliver those notifications. They don't give you a continuous, predictable, logical trickle as they happen.
No, they hold them back.
They intentionally hold them back and deliver them in unpredictable, algorithmic batches. This produces much larger prediction error spikes in the brain, reinforcing the compulsion to check the app.
So tying this back to the merchant, what does this highly engineered casino environment mean for our influencers post about a Shopify store's product?
It means the platform is acting as a massive physiological amplifier. The audience does not see the influencer's post neutrally. They are viewing it through a feed that has already primed their dopamine system. They are in a notification context that has established the app as a reliable source of social rewards. The viewer is neurologically warmed up, their heart rate is slightly elevated, and their attention is locked in before your product even appears on screen.
So they are primed?
Their engagement threshold is artificially lowered, and their emotional sensitivity is heightened.
A product reveal that might feel totally underwhelming if you just saw it on a plain website can land with massive emotional force on a feed where the audience is already in this high engagement, hyper-receptive neurological state.
Which brings us to the final strategic framework, the engagement calculus. Because not all emotional content works the same way inside this casino environment. And merchants need to be incredibly specific about what their actual goals are.
Okay, let's really unpack this because I think a lot of people operate under the assumption that the goal is always to go viral.
Everyone wants to go viral.
Every brand wants a viral hit. But going viral shouldn't actually be the goal if I want to sell products today.
Not necessarily, and often. Aiming for virality actively hurts conversions.
Really?
Yeah. If we look at the neurological research on what drives sharing and virality versus what drives trust and purchase intent, it breaks down cleanly into high arousal versus low arousal emotions. High arousal positive emotions like profound awe, intense excitement, and laugh-out-loud amusement are the strongest predictors of sharing.
So if you want millions of views, go for high arousal.
If you want a video to go viral and reach 10 million people, you need high arousal. Interestingly, high arousal negative emotions like intense anger, moral outrage, and anxiety also drive massive sharing. That explains the rapid spread of outrage content on platforms like X.
But virality, that high arousal state, doesn't always equal sales.
Correct. Low arousal emotions like a touch of melancholy, deep contentment, quiet warmth, and intimate inspiration drive much less sharing, but they drive significantly higher purchase intent and brand recall.
Because it feels safer.
Dramatization that leads to quiet warmth produces an approach motivation. The viewer moves emotionally toward the content, they feel safe, and by association, they move toward the product.
So it's the difference between a loud, chaotic house party and a quiet, intimate coffee date. High arousal viral content is like the house party.
I love that comparison.
The music is blasting, drinks are spilling, people are shouting over each other. It's great for getting your brand name in front of a ton of people quickly. But low arousal conversion content is the quiet coffee date. The lighting is soft, you're leaning in, you're actually listening.
You're actually paying attention to the person.
That is where you build the trust required to make a commitment, or in this case, a purchase.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The emotional profile of your influencer content entirely depends on your goal. Running the exact same loud, chaotic, fast-cutting content format for both top-of-funnel brand awareness and bottom-of-funnel direct conversions is leaving massive performance on the table. You have to design for the correct emotional register.
And the research mentions one more subtle tool for the merchant here regarding the actual script, semantic priming, the specific words the influencer uses.
Yes. Repeated linguistic framing around a product creates semantic priming. Let's say an influencer consistently uses the exact same three unique adjectives to describe your skincare serum across multiple posts.
Okay.
Think of semantic priming, like paving a dirt road in a dense forest. The first time you walk it, there's a brush and branches in the way that represents high cognitive load. But by repeating those specific words, they are paving that road. It literally lowers the cognitive cost of recalling your product.
It just becomes automatic.
When the customer eventually has a need for skincare, those specific words allow the memory to fire down a smoothly paved synaptic highway. Consistent messaging builds stronger memory retrieval pathways than constantly varying your message to try and be clever.
So the ultimate instruction manual for the influencer. Use your own genuine voice, be completely authentic, absolutely share minor critiques to satisfy the prediction error system, but make sure you consistently use the 2 or 3 core words that define our brand identity.
Exactly. That is how you build a durable, physical, neurological pathway to purchase.
Let's synthesize all of this because we have covered an immense amount of ground today. The core, undeniable message here is that effective influencer marketing isn't magic, and it certainly isn't just about massive follower counts or viral luck.
Not at all.
It works because it engages very real, very ancient neurological systems. It utilizes prediction error events to establish credibility. It leverages homophily and peer identification to bypass the brain's skepticism filter, and it uses physiological emotional contagion to lower rational barriers to purchase.
And because of that, the most profitable path for an online merchant is not to manufacture fake versions of these triggers. It is not to send rigid corporate scripts or use fake countdown timers or pay exorbitant fees for celebrities who have absolutely zero organic connection to your audience.
The ultimate commercial advantage goes to the merchant who creates the environments where genuine enthusiasm can thrive. Authentic alignment isn't just a nice, soft, ethical position to take. Over any meaningful time horizon, it is the absolute ultimate commercial advantage.
Because the brain's detection systems are simply too sophisticated to be fooled for long. You are marketing to a biological organism that has spent millions of years learning how to detect deception and seek out reliable social models for survival.
That's a great way to put it.
When you align your product with genuine enthusiasm from a relatable peer, you aren't just selling a product, you're providing the human brain exactly what it evolved to look for.
Which leaves us with one final, slightly haunting thought to chew on. We have spent this entire deep dive talking about how beautifully, perfectly wired our brains are to absorb and imitate the genuine enthusiasm, the desires, and the physiological states of the people we watch on our feeds.
Right.
But if our nervous systems are truly this porous, if we automatically catch the emotions and subconsciously adopt the preferences of the people we observe through our screens, how much of what we currently like, want, or strive for is actually ours?
That is a deep rabbit hole.
Over a lifetime of scrolling through these hyper-engineered casinos, where exactly does the influencer's biology end and our own true taste begin?
That is a question that definitely lingers long after you close the app.
It really does. Well, we want to thank you for taking this time with us, for slowing down and joining us to unpack the biology behind the buy button. Good luck with your stores, build something genuine, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.